Hello class, and welcome back to Mr. Poole's Online Learning. Today we're going to learn about a fun subject, equivalent fractions. Now, some of you might not even know what equivalent means. So let's first define what equivalent means. Equivalent fractions are fractions that are equal or the same. Okay, let's see what that is kind of talking about and see what that means, equal or the same. So I have two pies, okay, because this is pie type of season, good for apple pies and pumpkin pies and cherry pies. Okay, so pie number one, so someone ate half of the pie. So would you agree that that shaded part is half of that pie? So one part is shaded out of two, so it would be 1/2. Do you agree on that? Yeah, you should. You should agree because that is 1/2 of the pie. So if I go over to the second pie, this one is split into 4 sections, if I shade in the same sections that are equal to this section over here, if I go ahead and do that, which would be that section and that section, okay, so do you agree that this shaded part is equal to this shaded part? Okay, you should, because it is the same shaded section. Okay, but this one was 2 parts, 2 parts out of 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so even though I split that pie into different sections, I can still have an equivalent fraction, an equal or the same fraction. So pie 1 is 1 out of 2, but the same part is shaded over here, and this is 2 out of 4. So these are equivalent fractions. All right, let's come over to our second example. Again, I have a square and another square that are the same size. One is split into 2 sections, so our fraction is going to be 1 part is shaded. Remember, the shaded part is our numerator. And then there's 1, 2 in the whole, so that is our denominator. So our fraction would be 1 out of 2. If I shade the same section in this one, so I'm going to shade the same section right here, this section, in my second example, my second square, or rectangle. It's a rectangle, excuse me, I called it a square. It's really a rectangle. In my rectangle, if I shade the same portion, then let's see what our fraction would be over here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 parts shaded out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it would be 4/8. So 4/8 is equivalent to 1/2. Okay, so they're equal. They're equivalent. Now, you might be saying, well, gee, Mr. Poole, are we going to have to draw a picture of every fraction that we want to see if they're equivalent? No, you don't have to draw a picture for every one. In fact, if you did, it would make it really difficult to find equivalent fractions. There's an easier way to find equivalent fractions, and I'm going to show you it right now. Let me erase this, and I'm going to show you a much easier way to find equivalent fractions. Okay, so let's say you have a fraction like 3/4. So if you have 3/4 and you want to find equivalent fractions to 3/4, all you have to do is you multiply you do the same to both sides, or you multiply the same sides. Now, what I refer this to is I refer it to, say you had a brother and sister, or say a family had 2 children. So when the mom goes to the grocery store and buys a candy bar for one of the students, when she goes home, if she just gives one of the students or one of her children a candy bar, okay, the other student's going to go, where's mine? Where's my candy bar? Okay, so whenever a mom goes to the store and buys a candy bar for one of her children, she probably buys it for the other children so they don't fight over the candy bar and so they don't get into an argument over this candy bar. She buys one for one child and one for the other. Okay, so that's how I relate this to fractions. Whatever you do to the numerator, you have to do to the denominator. So, now, if I multiply them times 1, that gets me the same fraction. So it doesn't get me a fraction that's different. What if I multiply it times 0? Well, 0 times anything is 0, so I get nothing as a fraction. I get 0 over 0 as a fraction. So that doesn't help me. So what I'm going to say is don't use 0 or 1. Why is that? Don't use 0 because anything times 0 is 0. Don't use 1 because all you're going to get is the same fraction. That's all you're going to get. So you can start by using 2. If you multiply both sides times 2, so 3 times 2 is 6, 4 times 2 is 8. That is an equivalent fraction. 6/8 is equivalent to 3/4. Okay, let's check out another one. Let's do 3/4. Let's multiply both sides times 3. Okay, so you get 9/12. Okay, 9/12 is an equivalent fraction to 3/4, and it's equivalent to 6/8 also. So there's another equivalent fraction. Okay. What if you tried times 5? So 3/4 times 5. As long as you do the same thing to both sides, you have to multiply the numerator and denominator by the same thing, then you're going to get an equivalent fraction. So it would be 3 times 5 is 15, 4 times 5 is 20. There's another equivalent fraction. You can even, because I know someone will want to do this, you could go, well, Mr. Poole, what if I times it by 10? Well, you can times it by 10. Times both sides by 10, and you still get an equivalent fraction, 30 over 40. That's an equivalent fraction. Okay, so that's how easy it is to find equivalent fractions. As long as you multiply both sides by the same number. Okay? That's the rule. That's the rule that we want to use. So to find equivalent fractions, if you want to find equivalent fractions, you multiply the sides, the numerator and the denominator, by the same number, by the same thing. Okay? As long as you do that, you'll come out with an equivalent fractions. And remember, class, remember this, don't use 0 or 1. 0 or 1 is not helping you. 0 or 1 won't get you an equivalent fraction. So remember that rule, don't use 0 or 1 for equivalent fractions. I hope this has helped you to find equivalent fractions. You'll hear more about fractions in the upcoming days. All right, bye guys. Bye. Hi guys, welcome back. I want to add one thing to this. You can also find an equivalent fraction by doing this. Okay, you can take a fraction like 12/16 and you can divide both sides by the same number. So not only multiply, you can divide both sides by the same number, and you can still get an equivalent fraction. So 12 divided by 4, okay, that goes in 3 times, because 4 times 3 is 12, and 16 divided by 4 is 4, isn't it? Because 4 times 4 is 16, okay? So that would be the equivalent fraction of 12/16 if you divide both sides by 4. So you can not only multiply both sides by the same thing to get an equivalent fraction, you can also divide both sides by the same thing to get an equivalent fraction. So there's 2 different ways to get equivalent fractions. Okay? All right. Get that assignment done and turn it in. All right. Have a good day, guys.